Hello and welcome to a new episode of Vipers Voices. And it really does feel now as though we're on the cusp of the tournament. We're here at the team's base at the JA Resort in Jebel Ali. And I'm delighted to say that I've got alongside me the Director of Cricket for the Desert Vipers, Tom Moody. Tom, welcome back. Season 4. It's exciting times, isn't it? Always is at the start of a season with players coming in, kit being handed out, stories being told, new faces as well. You must be buzzing.
Absolutely. I think at any tournament right at the beginning, there's that sort of build up of expectation of, what may happen over the next 4 weeks or so. And we've managed to, during this journey so far, we've managed to, have a lot of stability around this group. Firstly, you mentioned the JA Resort here. We've been regular here, so it's nearly like coming home. I was speaking to a couple of players just this morning, and they, walked through having just come from the airport, and they said, "Oh, this is familiar. This is just like home." So I think that's a really important first step towards making people feel comfortable in their environment. There's a lot of familiarity with regards to stability in staff, both in coaching staff, but also management staff. So it seems like a pretty seamless transition.
Well, you've had to make some difficult decisions, Tom, because after season 3, there was the impending auction of players to be retained, players to be released. Those were the decisions you had to make. What was the rationale behind those decisions?
It was always a tricky one because we had planned for pretty much what happened in the first 3 seasons when it come to retention. It was a bit of a free for all, really. It was a case of recruiting players, or retaining, I should say, players that we're familiar with, and we wanted to continue that relationship. Plus, there was the option of recruiting outside, which is how it had played out in the first 3 seasons. This time round, it was quite a late call from the league to suddenly change the dynamics around retention. There was restrictions on the numbers of players that you could retain, plus also the dynamic of an auction, which can be quite thrilling, and unpredictable. And we saw a couple of players not so much associated with us, but other teams that sort of were having their big payday at an auction, which can happen. So when it comes to retention, we try to retain as many of the players as possible, and also we feel very happy with our auction and how that went, and the players we managed to secure out of there.
Well, some of the players you released have popped up at other franchises. There's Alex Hales and Shafane Rutherford at the Abu Dhabi Knight Riders. Nathan Souters popped up at Sharjah Warriors. That's just 3 examples.
Mm.
Are you worried players like that could come back and bite you? Or is it a case of having had them on your team, you now know their plans, so perhaps you feel more confident you can counter them?
Oh, look, we're obviously disappointed to not retain all our players. They're players that have been part of our story so far here in the ILT20 with Desert Vipers. But at the end of the day, when you have a cap on the number of players that you can retain, and also we need to take into consideration, there's a couple of examples where players didn't have full availability. So that's another thing that we've tried to do, is have that continuity of players that will be available from the start to finish. And there are other players in that auction dynamic that sort of went beyond what we had budgeted for. And that's the whole thing around the discipline of auctions, is that it's all well and good, going in there and saying I want player A, B, and C, but at the end of the day, there might be 5 other teams thinking the same thing. So therefore, the player that, whether he's been associated with you before or not, suddenly attracts a lot of interest. And Nathan Souter is a good example of that. He's been an important part of our story, but his moment came in the auction, and there was a market that were pretty keen on his skill set and what he could offer. So at the end of the day, we had to make a difficult decision and step away from that sort of bidding war. But I'm thrilled for him that he's getting an opportunity. Just to answer your question about it, am I worried about them coming back to bite us? Well, I think if we take that mindset, we should be more worried about ourselves if we're thinking that way than worrying about whether an Alex Hales or Nathan Souter or Shafane come back and have a good game against us, because we're looking at the wrong things if we're concerned about that. Yes, we're familiar with them, both on and off the field, but we'll do our best to use the knowledge that we've got to put that in place to limit their ability to perform against us.
Now, Tom, with the auction, what was the hardest part for you and the team? Was it planning to create a balanced squad? Was it sourcing information maybe on the Kuwait and Saudi players in particular, or was it something else?
Oh, it's a combination of all, really. There's a lot of unknowns around, obviously, our new partners with Kuwait and Saudi. And it's making sure that we do the necessary homework there to make sure we get the skill set that we're looking for. When it comes to the UAE players, it's a little bit easier because we've got the development tournament that plays out, and we actually see them not only in that tournament but outside that tournament as well, performing. So we've got some very capable hands on the ground here, all year round. And Jack Luffman's the one that has been leading that, that program. So we get a lot of intel on who are the players we need to target, what skill sets we're needing, and I'm really excited about our recruits. Obviously, we retained Kazema, who's doing brilliantly well. He's a real exciting talent that again is going to get great opportunities this season. But the other players that we've recruited alongside him are all capable of walk-up starts in this playing 11.
Of course, now the team's starting to assemble, the obvious question that crops up every season is how this squad compares in strength to previous editions of the DP World ILT 20. Is it simply too early to make that call?
On paper, I think it's as good as what we've had. I wouldn't say it's better, because I think every year we've had a good side. But on paper, we're looking good. But so is the number of other teams looking good on paper. So tournaments aren't won on paper, as we know. So it's really up to us as a management group and playing group to gel as quickly as possible. To create an environment where players feel that one, they belong, but two, they feel that they can express themselves without fear of judgment. And that's one of the big keys in franchise cricket, in my view. You hear all this cliche conversations around playing fearlessly and terms of similar nature, but at the end of the day, you can only do that if you've got the right environment, and that is our number one priority, is creating that environment where players feel that not only they're growing, whether they're playing or not playing in this environment, but they're also they're also enjoying the experience of playing in this Desert Vipers outfit.
Now, Tom, you opted to retain Lockie Ferguson as captain. He was captain in season 3. What was your thinking there?
Well, continuity, for one. I think it's important that, it's been a bit of a theme in what I've been saying in the last, 10 minutes or so, is having that stability, having that continuity, role clarity, whether you're captain or you're an opening bowler or you're a middle order player, whatever it may be. It's people are familiar what their roles are, and it's a lot easier for them to get out there and perform knowing there's no unpredictability with regards to them playing out of position or doing something they were a little bit unexpected to do. So Lockie, also from a captaincy point of view, was brilliant last year. Just his ability to communicate through all the group. And you've got a different variety of experiences that come together, a different variety of cultures that are coming together. And I think it's important that you have a leader and a leadership group that really respects and understands that, and manages to bring players into the group and feel like, they're very much a central part of what we're trying to do over the next few weeks.
Now, personally, Tom, you must be delighted to see Sam Curran back in the England white ball squads. He's a player you've had a lot to do with over the years. He's played with you at the Oval Invincibles in 3 title-winning seasons. You brought him here to the Vipers. He responded with the player of the tournament performance last season. You must be thrilled.
Yeah, look, Sam's, as we know, he's an exceptionally talented player. He's a genuine all-rounder where my definition of a genuine all-rounder is simply someone that can stand alone in a team as a batter or stand alone in a team as a bowler, and he can do that comfortably. But there's other layers to Sam that that he brings to the table to franchise cricket, which I hold quite highly and think are extremely valuable, and that is the leadership for one, his ability to bring the group together, his personality, his character is a magnetic, type personality that people naturally are drawn to him. And he brings energy. And he's someone that is always a glass half full when it comes to life. And I think that's really important, particularly in T20 cricket, where it can be quite fickle from a team perspective. You just don't fall over the line one day. You also, from a playing perspective, it may not go your way. You might bowl well, but you might be unlucky, and you might go at 10 and over plus. But he can put a quite sort of a clear line through that and put things into perspective. And I think that's good for the group to realise that.
Well, Sam was player of the tournament, as we've mentioned, in season 3. I just wonder, Tom, that will bring expectation on him that perhaps he needs to do it again in season 4, especially now he's back in the international fold. Is that pressure he will relish, do you think?
Absolutely. I don't think he'll even remember he was player of the tournament last year. That's the type of personality he is. It's a nice feather in his cap for sure. And he'd be very proud of that personal achievement. But I think his lasting memory will be trying to rectify us winning a final against losing a final. He's a personality that's not really there for his own personal gains and performances. He's about winning trophies, and he's got a record of doing that. Where he's come from in other environments, and I would have thought that would be the first thing on his mind is that let's get in that final again, and let's set the record straight.
Now, I've mentioned the Oval Invincibles there, and that's something you've been in charge of for 3 seasons and 3 victorious seasons as well. But your circumstances have changed since the last time we spoke here on Vipers Voices. You're now the Global Director of Cricket for RPSG franchises. You've stood down from your role at the Invincibles. And of course, they've got Lucknow Super Giants in the IPL, Durban Super Giants in the SA20, the Manchester Originals in the 100. It's a great opportunity, but it must have been a wrench for you to leave the Oval.
Yeah, look, I've had 5 great years there. I was lucky enough to get the opportunity when the 100 first started in the UK, and to be at such a celebrated ground like the Oval. It was terrific to go there or go back there. Not that I've been there on a coaching assignment, but I've played there plenty of times, and I've also got a personal connection there as well. I'm very good friends with Alex Stewart, who I've known for over 40 years, believe it or not. We played club cricket for many years together, and obviously played against each other a lot. So it was great to reconnect on many levels, but it was also nice to have the success we had. The girls won it the first 2 years, and we were fortunate enough to win the last 3 years. And things have changed in the 100, as we know. It's been well publicised. It's now been sold off to various investors around the cricketing globe, and my circumstances have changed, as you noted, where an opportunity, a unique opportunity, it was presented where it was too good to not acknowledge and to embrace, and I'm very excited to be able to take that on and hopefully get involved in some more silverware.
And what does that mean for the Vipers? Business as usual, obviously, this season, but longer term?
Yeah, business as usual. Nothing's changed because there's no conflict with regards to, the company having any, team or association with the ILT20. So they were terrific, sort of understanding that I had a commitment here, and I wanted to see that through. We've started a project here, and it'd be nice to be able to see that through and see some success.
Tom, the sides come so close to winning the title. The Desert Vipers, twice now, almost getting across the line, 2 finals. What's it going to take in season 4, I wonder, for that to change? What are the little 1%ers needed to change this into a successful season?
I think the first 1% or more is not overthink it. Um, I think too often teams and management try to reinvent the wheel when it comes to just focusing on the end goal, and that's to win a trophy. To me, that only materializes by being very, very good at the process leading to that opportunity. And I feel the first 3 seasons, even though the second season was a poor season for our standards, I feel that the process is something that this franchise has absolutely nailed down. And that process involves personnel, both on and off the field. It involves getting the right leadership, around the group, both on and off the field. And it also involves creating that environment I was talking about, that sort of cultural environment where, you know, players from all walks of life, from different societies can come into and they feel welcome. And if you nail those things, you're well prepared. You're well prepared professionally with regards to your research on your opposition, the brand of cricket you're wanting to bring to the table, and your ability to adapt that brand according to situations and conditions. I think is absolutely vital. So I don't think there's a lot we need to change. We need to keep doing a lot of what we're doing, and double down on that, and just continue to, with particularly new players, just make them feel as welcome as possible, and hopefully they can impact the group early.
Well, the first match of the tournament is the Vipers against the Dubai Capitals in a repeat of last season's thrilling final. How long did it take you, I wonder, to get over that loss? Or are you someone who can put things in the rear view mirror quite quickly and move on?
Oh, look, it always stings. There's no question about that. But I think, I've learned over my professional life, both as a player and now in the coaching and the various directors roles that I've played, is that you can't dwell too much in the past, because that really affects the next step that you take in life. And that step has to be a positive step. That has to be a step where you're absolutely razor focused to win the next contest. And if you're dwelling on too many negatives, you find yourself caught in a bit of a spiral, and it's not a healthy place to be, particularly when every competition or every innings or whatever the case may be is that new opportunity to to chart a new positive direction in what you're doing, whether it be from a personal point of view or a team.
Well, for the players and management who were here last term for that final loss, is this first match about revenge, or can you separate yourselves from that emotion and simply focus on the job in hand, which is 2 points at the end of the day?
I think it'd be a massive mistake if we consider it as revenge, because again, we're focusing on the wrong thing. They're going to have a side that's quite different, and I know there's a little bit of rivalry between these two teams, and I quite like that. That's a separate thing. But the reality is that if we're focusing too much on controlling things that aren't in our control, we'll fall over before we even take our first step. So I think it's more about it's getting off to a positive start with our campaign, making sure that we understand exactly how we want to be playing our cricket, and measuring ourselves more on that than outcome. This is what we're trying to do. Are we achieving this style of cricket? Have we got the balance right? And make our judgment on those things against who's winning and losing the game.
How important, though, Tom, is it to win that first match? The team won the opening match in seasons 1 and season 3 and went on to reach the final in both of those editions, lost the first match it played in season 2 and didn't make the playoffs. Is a season success really dependent on starting well?
I think in a lot of franchise tournaments, momentum is a word that's used a lot, and that's basically what you're talking about there, is getting early momentum, which gives you early confidence, and in a way it's creates that sort of false floor of security for any environment, both players and for staff. But again, I would hate to think that is something that we're relying on. as an organisation to gauge whether we're going to be successful or not. Because I've also been involved in a number of tournaments where teams have lost the first 3 games in a row. I remember one season, Chennai Super Kings in the IPL. I think they lost more than 3 in a row to begin with, but they came from absolutely nowhere, bottom of the table, to win the tournament. So again, that can only be done if you are balanced in the way you view success and failure. And we all want to win every single game. There's no question of that. But we all know the reality of sport. That's not possible. Particularly in a 2-horse race, it becomes very, very tricky. But I think if you double down on what's important to you as a franchise and, how you want to go about your business, that success will come. But do I want to win the first game? Of course I do.
Well, Tom, I noticed this season there's been a decision not to have a warm-up game ahead of the first match, a break from what the side's done in the past. Is that simply because of the difficulty of getting a team on the park due to late arrivals, a preference for getting the squad together for meaningful and lengthy practice, perhaps? Or is there some other reason behind the decision, I wonder?
It's the clash of fixtures leading into the tournament. We know there's a T10 tournament that's going where a lot of players from a lot of the teams are connected to that. So in a way, a lot of our players are getting that exposure in the middle, and that's what practice games are all about, is trying to create an environment where players can play under pressure in match conditions. So because of that, we're a little bit compromised with regards to the players that would be available for that warm-up match and the meaningfulness of that match. There's nothing worse than having a warm-up match that becomes nearly like a benefit match or a charity match. It has to be played at the intensity and focus that you'd expect in a proper match in any starting tournament. And we feel that we could invest that time on a one-to-one basis with key people leading into the start of the tournament against worrying about the collective.
What about, Tom, the fact that you're playing the first match of the season this time around? There's positives and negatives to that, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, look, I'd rather get into the tournament. And again, sort of waiting and watching 2 or 3 other teams, get their first game away, and you're waiting, patiently for your opportunity. I think that the sooner you can get up and running, the better. Because it also allows your players to get into the tournament instead of sort of having that sort of anxious wait to get up and running. Players want to play, as simple as that. Yes, they need to prepare to play, so training becomes important, and all the other prep around that, whether that be with Daz in the gym, or whether that be with the physio with rehab, or whatever it may be. A lot of players like to sit down and do a lot of analysis work with your various line coaches and Freddie, our analyst. So, some people will want to watch a lot of the opposition as well, or they may want to watch some of their stuff just to galvanise exactly where they are with their game. So I don't think it's a major issue. We'll be prepared.
Christmas and New Year through the back end of the tournament this time. That's different in comparison to previous editions. How will that affect the dynamic of the squad, I wonder, and the tournament as a whole, do you think?
It's going to be very interesting because we've got some players that don't celebrate Christmas. And I quite like that as well, because I think one of the intriguing things in playing franchise cricket is learning and sharing about people's backgrounds, whether it be their personal story, their family background, or whether it be their beliefs. And I think we need to embrace that regardless. We'll have players that may celebrate Christmas for the very first time in their own way. It's not going to be forced upon them, but I think that adds a nice sort of twist to it. We'll have families around as well, and I think we've always been a franchise that has embraced, the support of families and wanting the players to have a good experience and it not to be a challenging experience because they're away from home for long periods of time. So, that's what Phil Oliver has sort of set the tone at the top of the management as CEO. He's very much set that tone that we are that franchise, and we will make sure players have the opportunity to, to celebrate with families over those important milestones.
And finally, Tom, what are you looking forward to most of all from this season's tournament?
Uh, well, there's a few things. Obviously, success. That's a given. I think everyone that's involved in any tournament at the beginning, the ultimate goal is to win that tournament. We've got close a few times, so I'm looking forward to that opportunity. But I'm more, I suppose, looking forward to working with a few new players that have come into the Desert Vipers and helping them settle, but also impact this season. I think we've got a few players that we feel confident are going to have a real impact in this tournament, and it's going to be fun watching them do that with a Desert Vipers shirt on.
Well, fun is the right word. That's what we're looking forward to over the next month or so. Desert Vipers getting back into action in the DP World ILT 20. Remember, the first match of the tournament is a Desert Vipers match. It's against the Dubai Capitals, and it's on the 2nd of December at the Dubai International Stadium.